Hello everyone, welcome to my week 2 presentation. So the information that we're going over is attribution theory in chapter 1 and social exchange theory also in chapter 1. I like them because they're psychology theories. And then conflict styles in chapter 2 and factors that promote mutual gains in chapter 3. In chapter 1, I found attribution theory most interesting. It refers to how we understand people behaviors by attaching meanings to them, explaining the causes of that behavior. So the author I selected did an empirical study. He concluded that majority of the study results indicate that people accept responsibility for positive behavior outcomes, but they will deny responsibility for negative behavior outcomes. This is called the self-serving bias. And he mentioned a bit about defensive attributions following positive and negative outcomes. And they occur when your behaviors are public, you are in a high position of choice and feel responsible for your action, and conditions where there are high ego and self-awareness. This is very relevant to conflict and solving problems because people tend to attribute a problem to a person's trait rather than the situation. It creates misunderstanding because it shifts focus away from the problem to the person. So it's more of like a blaming issue. Also in chapter 1 is social exchange theory. It argues that people will make choices out of their self-interest. They will weigh the rewards and costs of an action. And Marvell and Schmidt did a study on how people gain compliance. Compliance can be gained through inducement, punishment, power, persuasion. The authors, they found that rewarding and punishment also relates to power, and that within a stable relationship, there are high costs for both parties to use the threat of ostracism. And this is important because it expands on how people make decisions and how to gain cooperation during a conflict. And this information is also beneficial to negotiations because people will measure costs and benefits and settle for trade-offs. So moving on to chapter 2, there are different conflict styles. The article Conflict Resolution What Works goes over different ways to resolve conflict, and the study found that structural conflict, which is caused by struggles between departments or groups, was the most common type of conflict reported by the participants in the study. And then you have next was the conflict as a result of personal values and personality. Communication conflict was the least common, and the method used to resolve conflict that was used the most was forcing. So compromise was the least used. However, problem solving was the most favorable and had all positive results for resolving the conflict. So the study indicates that tough and coercive strategies do not work to resolve a problem, and it actually weakens work relationships, and avoidance of conflict is ineffective as well because nobody is facing the problem. Chapter 3 talks about factors that promote gains for both parties in negotiation. The factor in the strategy that was important was trust, according to the book. So the study by Kimmel and his colleagues expanded on the effects of trust, aspirations, which are goals, and gender on negotiation tactics. They found that consciously cooperative behaviors through direct information exchange are produced under high trust, and self-consciously distributive behavior, which is competitive behavior, are produced through indirect information exchange in low trust condition. So both sides are not providing transparent information, they're not being straightforward with each other in low trust condition. And this is because negotiators perceive statements about their needs and priorities as risky in bargaining settings, and they will only willing to make them if they trust each other, because there's a tendency to believe one another to be cooperatively motivated. And they are more likely to cooperative if negotiators are seen with a problem-solving orientations and having high aspirations. This is the same for both genders. There is a slight difference with women, is that they're less interested in formal bargaining. They say less, although they spend as much time as men in a session. And I think this information encourages information that are straightforward, strategies that focus on getting trust and cooperation from both sides during a negotiation, to focus on the objectives during negotiating to establish, again, trust on both ends. As a negotiation, you should have a problem-solving orientations and be seen as unselfish, for people to trust you. This concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. Have a great week.